we have in the 19th century the Industrial Revolution and the incredible economic and military empowerment of Europe and America. All of the countries which have gone through the Enlightenment and adopted a modernist form of consciousness and culture experience a gigantic material empowerment. And the result of that was an immature, Eurocentric, imperialistic hubris that Europeans were superior, right? It led to kind of ideas that our culture is superior because we're superior racially, which is, a moral nightmare of racism, which justified colonialism. And there was all kinds of huge moral hazards that accompanied the idea that some societies are more developed than others. And so understandably, the immaturity and immorality of that way of thinking was countered by early proponents of progressive postmodernism, such as Franz Boas and Margaret Mead, anthropologists who argued for the social norm of cultural relativism. And it's not all wrong. In other words, what the beautiful thing about cultural relativism is it goes back and it reaffirms that humans everywhere in all different cultural and social settings, we're far more alike than we are different. And that, that any attempt to talk about, especially, from the group that claims to be higher, that we need to level that we need to cut that off because of the horrors of colonialism and imperialism and all of the immature expressions of it in the 19th century and in early sociology and anthropology. But part of the trouble with cultural relativism is that it contains its own glaring performative contradiction, which is true for almost most progressive postmodern statements, and that is it's saying that that a relativistic view that sees each line of culture developing in its own way, that no comparisons can be made or rankings can be made, that's a claim of superiority, right? That they're pulling the rug out from under themselves philosophically by saying that cultural relativism is superior to recognizing cultural development, and that this this performative contradiction of cultural relativism it has moral hazards of its own, and those moral hazards can be seen in the idea that we have transcended societies that were based on slavery, or societies that practice human sacrifice, right? Although slavery still exists, and I'm not sure about sacrifice, but in most of the world, there's a general consensus that slavery is bad, and that sacrifice is bad, and that there's just sort of moral clarity around earlier human practices that were once thought to be natural and evident, which we now condemn. But if we say that a culture that practices slavery is morally equal, and that a culture that has grown out of slavery or gone through revolutions or important forms of its own sacrifice to eliminate slavery, if we say that doesn't make things better, then not only does it make it difficult to help spread or eradicate slavery wherever it exists in societies where it's still practiced, but it also makes it extremely difficult to defend the achievements of the society in which we live, and those achievements go beyond the obvious horrors of slavery or human sacrifice. We could talk about the equality of women, right, which is I think a clear objective marker of the evolution of culture. That cultures wherein women are the equals of men are more developed morally than those wherein, now we could say the same thing about societies where there's peace, societies where there's prosperity, societies where there's rule of law, societies where there's human rights, right? I think we have a kind of a moral duty to say, like, human rights aren't just for us, kind of weird Westerners, that everybody in the world deserves human rights. And that I think we have, a moral duty to stand up for it. But if we are staunch cultural relativists, then our ability to make such claims is, cut off at the knees. So I want to make 3 arguments. There's more arguments than this. But if I'm saying that there are stages of history and that they do evince a normative progression, although not in every way, I say there's a polarity here. The part of the truth is a cultural relativism that everybody deserves respect, everybody's human, we're more alike than we are different, that there are big problems in claiming that you're superior. It leads to all kinds of problems. So we want to hold that in mind and say, yeah, that's true, but partial. In the same way that an aspiration for universal human rights and rule of law in the world, that's also something that is limited. You can go too far, right? Prosperity can become consumerism. Liberty can become anarchy, right? But nevertheless, if we keep these things in mind, if we have the egalitarian influence of cultural relativism and we put that in a polar relationship with this recognition that we want to make things better, and that means we have an obligation to affirm what's better and stand up for what's better, then those two things can inform each other and moderate each other. So on the side of the normative evolution of stages of history that interpenetrate people's minds, the first argument is that the stages are growing, these stages of consciousness and culture, they're growing in inclusivity, right? So almost all the developmental psychology stages recognize a kind of an egocentric, ethnocentric, more nation-centric, and then a world-centric estimate of those worthy of moral consideration, right? So at the warrior stage, or pardon me, spiral dynamics, the red value meme, the primary moral scope is egocentric, right? I'm looking out for number one, maybe my homies, but overall, it's very, egocentric, not just in its estimates of morality, but in all kinds of antisocial behaviors that come from this warrior kinds of culture. Then we move from, the sort of, the tribal or the individual to the ethnocentric or religiocentric, where people who are in the same faith as us are worthy of moral consideration. And though, ethnocentrism is something we condemn now, we try to evolve beyond, there was a time in history where this was a massive moral breakthrough because it allowed humanity to organize themselves in larger societies where wisdom could be shared and there could be law because everybody was unified by a singular religion, for the most part. And then, of course, we move with modernity to a kind of a social structure where more than one religion can be accommodated, right? The circle of inclusivity grows wider to include everybody who lives in the same nation, right? All of your compatriots, but also to some extent, all humans, right? But that sense of inclusivity then goes further with the rise of progressive postmodernism, or this green value stage, using spiral dynamics to talk about it. That at least in its more pure expressions widens the circle of inclusivity to include all sentient beings, right? Not just all humans, but animals and the environment. It's definitely more inclusive, at least before it becomes hijacked by identity politics. But that's another story. I might get to that later. But I think that again, this is highly simplified, right? This is just a talk. I'm not, delivering a detailed academic seminar about this, and I want it to be accessible to folks, so I'm simplifying. But at least one way that I think we can make a philosophical claim of normative development is this rising inclusivity as the stages develop in history. Another important argument for why stages of cultural evolution can be recognized even while acknowledging the important caveats and critiques of cultural relativism, is the idea that each one of these major worldviews, as they emerge in history and as they interpenetrate people's minds, as they become available for people to use, they have massive superpowers. They're like a kind of mental operating system that gives people new abilities that they didn't have before adopting this system. And there's powerful evidence for that in the fruits of the cultures that each stage delivers, right? So the emergent superpowers, again, to oversimplify and abbreviate, the emergent superpowers of traditional consciousness as it emerges, it brings moral strength, moral clarity, right? That is this egocentric warrior consciousness. What's right is what's most powerful, It's dog eat dog. But the religious superpower brings a sense of the golden rule. And that creates social trust that can create powerful forms of culture, right? Then with the emergence of modernity, there's a new birth of reason, a new empirical understanding, a scientific clarity that could see the natural world at a new level. And modernity also brings an initiative, right? A restlessness that breaks out of the conformist consciousness of pre-modern forms of culture. And these superpowers translate to people. Modernist consciousness is more powerful. Not just for bad, but for good. And modernist consciousness makes you smarter, right? So the observation that kids from wealthy homes consistently do better on the SAT, it's not because, in most cases that they had more tutoring. It's because they live in a modernist household where the values of modernity have given them mental abilities which show up on these IQ tests. The same with progressive postmodernism. It brings the superpowers of emotional empathy, sensitivity. It gives access to the feelings of others and the interiority of others that people don't have at the same level within modernity. There may be empathy at every level, but progressive postmodernism brings a new superpower of that. And then the final argument that I'll at least make here is that consistently, if you look at history over the last several hundred years, people want what higher stages deliver, right? People have a right to be who they are. That was one of Claire Graves' famous sayings, and I endorse that. I think, again, the cultural relativism means everybody deserves respect. But if you look at the youth of the pre-modern countries that are pre-democratic, and what they want is they want liberty and prosperity. At least most of them, right? While the adults may be loyal to their worldview and don't aspire to modernity, it's clearly attractive to the youth, and it's been attracting the majority of humanity, at least in major parts of the world over the last 300 years, right? The movement is gradually into modernity, and the regression to traditional consciousness, at least at a cultural level, is not as evident as the increasing growth of modernity. And the same can be said for progressive postmodernity. The youth of places like America are drawn to what they perceive as the moral superiority of progressive postmodern consciousness, right? Not only just our young people are attracted to it, but the good people, the elites, the highly educated people have adopted progressive postmodern cultural consciousness en masse. And so this is not just my value judgment. This is the value judgment of humanity, at least major portions of humanity over hundreds of years. Now, there's, again, we could say, well, there's exceptions to that and there's caveats. But in general, I think that we can point to this kind of collective desire for these higher levels.